City Council regular meeting for the City of Wyoming, Minnesota, October 5th, 2021. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. Member Yeager, Member Onstead, Member Lugar, and Mayor Iverson are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, open forum. Is there anybody here for open forum? There is not. We'll move on to approval of minutes. Number 1 on the agenda. Consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for September 1st, for the 21st, 2021. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Lugar and a second by Member Onstead. Second by Member Onstead. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So approved. Consent agenda number 2, 3, 4. Number 2, 3, and 4. Is there anybody who wishes to pull an item from the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve number 2, 3, and 4?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Onstead. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member Lugar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Acknowledge receipts of reports of officer boards, commissions, and department heads, number 5, 6, 7, and 8. Does anybody wish to pull a report? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Number 9, to consider changing the regularly scheduled meeting of the Wyoming City Council on November 2nd, 2021 to November 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. due to the general election day. Mr. Linwood, are you taking this or Ms. Dumas?
I will be, Mayor. Mayor, members of council, this is a normal, not an issue on an odd year election. At the beginning of the year when we set our city council meetings, we usually staff does due diligence on this to make sure that we don't have any school board elections. And this year, Forest Lake, Chisago, or North Branch did not. Unfortunately, or fortunately maybe in the school district, I don't know, they had a school board member resign. So now North Branch will be holding a special election on the same day as our regularly scheduled council meeting. Under Minnesota statute 204C.03, we cannot conduct a meeting between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on that day, since we do have a portion of North Branch School District within our city limits. So staff is recommending to the City Council that we move that regularly scheduled meeting to November 3rd at 7 p.m. We have a couple different public hearings that night, and we feel it's in the best interest of the public participation that we have that at our normally scheduled time. So we're asking the Council to make a motion to move that regularly scheduled meeting of November 2nd, 2021 to November 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m.
All right, so questions from the council. Member Yeager?
No questions.
Member Onstead?
No questions.
Member Lugar?
No questions.
All right, we need a motion to approve changing our regularly scheduled meeting from November 2nd, 2021 to November 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Lugar. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member Onstead. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So approved. Number 10, to consider Resolution 21-10-99, declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparations for proposed assessment roll for the 2021 street improvement project. Mr. Erickson, are you starting with this?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have progressed pretty nicely with the road improvement project out there. I know we're all pretty familiar with this process now. We've had quite a few projects in consecutive years here. The next step in this process, consistent with Chapter 429, we are required now to move forward with the assessment portion of the project. And the next step here that we're moving forward with is to declare the cost to be assessed. We have prepared a resolution on that, and then we also have prepared a resolution for setting the assessment hearing date. I just want to quick go over what our projected project costs are. The total project cost is identified to be about $1.796 million. It is a little bit less than what we had identified in the feasibility study. I just wanted to quick highlight, I won't go through all the numbers here, but just want to highlight some of the, I guess, the end result here. The feasibility study identified an assessment rate of about $2,947, and we're coming in at that $2,723.78 based on our projected costs. And so we are recommending council approve the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed. And we also are recommending moving forward with setting that assessment hearing for the November 3rd meeting that you just approved now for 7 p.m. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, so questions from council. We'll start with Member Yeager again.
The assessment payback period will be 10 years this time?
Correct.
All right, so we had 10 years, and I'm all for great work, love 10 years. But we switched it to 15. Why switch it back to 10?
So this is something that is open for discussion. It is something that I spoke with Mr. Linwood. The amount is only the $2,700. I think some of our other assessments were up in the $6,000-7,000 range, and so I think just the size of it, we think over a 10-year period is a little bit more manageable with the size of that. But that is something that we can certainly discuss. We've stayed with that 4% interest rate as well that we've typically had. We haven't had a lot of bond calls, and Mr. Linwood indicated that that's still about the going rate. We do have a increased rate over the going rate to handle the city expenses in doing that, carrying those costs.
Okay, because when you said about the $6,000 to $7,000 assessments, I believe when we did 245th Street, that was about $6,000 to $7,000 assessment done over 10 years. And so, yeah. Is it possible that for us to come up with a policy to have a clear criteria of when something will be assessed for 10 years and something will be assessed for 15 years?
We certainly could. I think as Mr. Erickson, when we discussed it, we did it more, I guess, by the amounts that we felt that this was more palatable to our residents. But if the council would like to see a policy in regards to levels of assessment, if you feel there should be, instead of just doing a case by case, if you want a policy, if it's over such a threshold of dollars that it should be a 10-year or 15-year, we could certainly look into that.
I mean, I wouldn't want, sometimes with case by case, it becomes so arbitrary. And somebody could come back and say, well, but you did 10 years here, you did 15 years here, for consistency's sake, basically.
Any other questions?
No? That was it?
All right, Member Onstead.
No questions.
Member Luger?
No questions.
All right, and I have none either. So consider Resolution 211099 declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering preparations for the proposed assessment roll for the 2021 street improvement project. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Luger. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Onstead. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 11, to consider Resolution 2110-100, a resolution calling for a public hearing on assessments for the 2021 street improvement project, City Project 21-02. Mr. Erickson, is that you again?
It is. Thank you. We just declared the cost to be assessed. We have prepared the assessment roll already. And so this evening, we are asking that we set that assessment hearing for that November 3rd date. That does allow the 30-day prepay period and still allows time to get that into Chisago County for certification. So we are recommending approval of that resolution.
Okay. Questions from council? Member Luger?
No questions.
Member Onstead?
No questions.
Member Yeager?
No questions.
All right, we need a motion to approve Resolution 2110-100, a resolution calling for a public hearing on assessments for the 2021 street improvement project on November 3rd. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Onstead. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Luger. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 12, to consider Resolution 2110-101, a resolution calling for a public hearing on assessments for Parcel 21.10605.00 for the 2008 250th Street Improvement Project, City Project 2008-01. Mr. Linwood, are you starting with this one, or?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to share my screen just to be able to reference the memo and the map on this particular item. This particular item, parcel 21.106.05, as you can see here, is the highlighted parcel down at the end of 257th Street. This was a parcel that was originally included in the assessment for the 2008 street and utility project. This was essentially the creation of 257th for the access of the road and then for water and sewer utilities as well. Mainly the intent at the time of this road was for the implementation of what now is the Rosenbauer building there, but at the time was Accent. Since then, we have had Himes Lake Villas North, as you can see, to the east of Accent, and now there is a second phase of these next two parcels that will be Himes Lake Villas North. At the September 15th sheriff's auction, this parcel did move forward for sale. As part of that forfeiture process, you can see that the sale price was $5,047.20, less those county admin cons, and then the outstanding special assessments on that parcel before forfeiture were $183,456.46. We are still currently paying on the bonds for these that were put out and started. We started in 2009, those 2009 A bonds that were part of that water and sewer and street project. We began making payments on those in 2010, and we'll complete payments on those in 2025. As part of that, there are assessment portions that were each assessed to these parcels along that corridor for the improvement that the property received. At this point in time, we have had an entity that has purchased this property, so it is under the city's right to be able to reassess that parcel for the outstanding balance. At this point in time, we are asking the council to move forward with that reassessment of the parcel, since we do still owe on those bonds and we are still paying that back, and that property is receiving the benefit of that street and that water and sewer. I can stand for any questions at this time from the council.
All right. Member Onstead, do you have any questions?
I don't have any at this time.
Okay. Member Yeager?
Why is the original assessment reduced by the sales price and the county cost?
Because essentially the sales price goes directly towards the assessments.
Oh, okay.
So we receive that minus that $277.64 from the admin function of the county for the sale and then recording, et cetera. We receive the rest of that, and it goes directly towards that $183,000. So anything, anytime a property with assessments on its sales, the beginning proceeds of the sale price go towards that assessment.
Okay. And was any of the assessment paid in the 8 years before the property went into
I believe the
tax?
first year was paid on it, but after that, there was nothing. It's been essentially in tax forfeiture for the last 5 years, so.
Yeah, because that's from 2017. So
Correct.
basically it went from 1 year paid and then just sat there for,
They made a determination, yeah, not to, I believe that the owner was actively trying to sell it and could just never find a buyer. It is a somewhat of a challenging piece of land, being that there's really only a component that's usable, is kind of the front triangular piece. It's about 3 acres, and then also it's in a shoreland area, so you lose a little bit more of the ability to develop that. So it's not an easy piece. Not that there isn't value to it or could be developed. It just presents some challenges.
okay. Does the new owner have to pay immediately?
With the council tonight, we would be essentially giving notice to the owner that they should pay within 30 days.
Okay.
All of the people that participated in that Chisago County Sheriff's sale, the auditor did make them aware that any of the outstanding assessments on these could be due essentially immediate upon sale of the property. So there was fair warning that that is how this works. And we received multiple calls at the city before that sheriff's sale happened, asking about questions about development, about the assessments. This particular purchasee we did not speak with, but the auditor has assured us that they made it very clear during that process.
Okay, and if he doesn't pay it?
If he doesn't pay it, we're
Right.
hopeful that they do, because if they're going to try to develop it, but the unfortunate thing, if they chose not to pay it, essentially they could sit on it for 5 years and it could go back in the forfeiture process.
Well,
We certainly hope that doesn't happen.
do you know what is he planning to develop?
We have had inquiries from the individual. I know Mr. Wecker, zoning administrator, they have talked about some potential type of maybe townhome on that. I know that at one point in time, we had another developer that looked at a similar, so, but they are actively having discussions right now. It'll be a matter,
Okay.
I think, of what they can fit to make it profitable for them.
Can we go after him if he doesn't pay it?
I don't believe we have any recourse really if it's similar with the forfeiture process.
It would be similar. It is an
Okay.
outstanding lien on the property though, so if it's transferred, goes back into forfeiture, somebody else takes it over, the assessment still stands. We'd have to go through this process again though.
Okay.
So,
That's all I had.
All right, Member Luker?
I have no questions.
Mr. Linwood, how many more pieces of property do we have along there that has not paid assessments?
There's two other pieces that are still existing in forfeiture, and that would be these two parcels that are just east of the DeVita Dialysis Clinic. Those were in the sheriff's sale and are available for sale right now. You don't have to, the sheriff's sale is just a way to draw attention to the parcels. So they could be available for sale right now. I know that we have had inquiries, probably more significant in the last year and a half than we have for quite some time on these parcels. So we're hopeful that someone will try to make something happen with those two, because it's a good area. Obviously, these are much larger than that other one, so there's some good developable land on this. It's upland, it's dry. You have some with the shoreland effect here, but really on these, there's some pretty significant acreage, so it could be a good site for whatever fits in that office healthcare.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
development.
zoned, if I remember correctly, medical, right?
Yep, office healthcare, so it'd have to be essentially that, well, if it was housing, that 55+ criteria, and then office healthcare, that was really, I think, the intent through that. So I know
Sure.
that we have had some conversations in the past with some businesses, so we're hopeful that those will move as well.
Perfect. All right, thank you. We need a motion to approve Resolution 2110-101, a resolution calling for, whoops, sorry. Is that the right one? Oh, yeah, it is. Public hearing on assessments on parcel 21-10605.00 for the 2008 257th Street Improvement Project. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Luker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Onstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 13 on our agenda, to consider and discuss design considerations for the 2022 East Viking Boulevard Road Improvement Project. Mr. Erickson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm going to share my screen and just walk through a little bit, but before I do that, I'd like to just give a little background on what progress we've made thus far. We have gone through and completed our topographic survey. We've just got that data back in. We are currently working on developing the engineering report for the federal grant related to the Public Works grant that we discussed. And then we're also utilizing that same information to prepare a feasibility study. Some of the criteria that is needed for developing that engineering report for that grant is really to really identify the scope of the project. And I know we've talked a little bit about a couple different alternatives, and I think it's important for us to use the city funds efficiently, and I'd like to get some guidance from the city as far as which option we would like to move forward with. And I'd like to kind of explain some pros and cons of a couple of different options that we have that we can look at today. But we really need to hone in on which option we want to move forward with. With this federal EDA grant, we do need to identify parcel acquisition, so there may be some easements that we need to acquire to complete the work that we have planned. And we also need to have the appraisals completed. And so we don't want to go through and just a shotgun approach and kind of pick all the options and move forward with these things and figure that out. I think we can hopefully hone in on an option that the council is comfortable with. We've had one neighborhood meeting where we've gotten some feedback from property owners, but we really want to kind of hone in on that next option, because we can't submit multiple options for the grant. We need to hone in on that one. And then also we don't want to go through and spend a lot of money investigating every potential cost with all different options. And so with that background, I just wanted to walk through again what some of the options are. One is simply just reconstruct the street at the existing width that exists there today. There's parking on both sides of the roadway. There is sidewalk on both sides for a stretch of the roadway. And I'll just kind of walk our way through this, so bear with me a little bit. Again, this is Fenwick. And I do have, you can see that these are contour lines here that are on the drawing here as well. Easily attainable just to reconstruct the roadway in its current configuration and replace sidewalk where it currently exists, and simply just leave it at that. We have talked about trying to improve our pedestrian facilities, And we've talked about maybe extending the sidewalk on the south side and a trail on the north side. And that's certainly a viable option. We think it makes a lot of sense. It's extremely difficult to do and much more costly if we don't shrink that roadway down. So we do have parking lanes on the both sides. Some of the feedback that we received from property owners, we had presented an option that would eliminate the parking on both sides of the roadway and allowing more room for us to put in these pedestrian facilities. And there was concern about removing parking on both sides of the roadway. We have the art studio, I think there's a church, there's some apartments that oftentimes utilize the road for parking whether they have events or if there's snow plowing in parking lots, they park out in that area. And so with that feedback given, we also kind of thought there's another option, right, where we eliminate the parking on the north side and keep the parking on the south side of the roadway. That would allow really the trail to be constructed and installed much easier on the north side. We pull the roadway in and we have that room that we've just eliminated from road driving surface to help create that room for the trail. So with that, I think I'll just walk through a couple of areas that we have some concerns with, not that aren't achievable, but we certainly, you can see here, we still have the sidewalk and the trail in, all the way up to Forley on both sides. When we get to Forley, you can see there's a large slope coming down to the roadway, and it's a little bit challenging. We certainly could, but we'd need to acquire some rights through this area to, one, install some retaining walls in order to construct that section of sidewalk. And there would be some challenges with some existing driveways that come out to the roadway here. This driveway in particular is already really steep, right down to the roadway. If we construct a trail or a sidewalk in that location, you have to have a flat boulevard and a flat sidewalk and then make up that grade. And so it would make their driveway much steeper than exists today. And so there are some challenges with a number of areas in extending that sidewalk all the way through. We certainly can overcome those and have those conversations. The north side is much easier, particularly if we pull back that roadway and we eliminate that parking. I don't think there's really a lot to overcome there, where we could certainly install that trail on the north side much easier and really without a lot of obstacles. The roadway right-of-way on the west end here is pretty significant. It does neck down and become a little bit narrower here, but again, we feel we have some room to work, particularly if we remove that trail, where we could certainly continue and install that trail. On the south side, you can see the property lines now here actually extend to the center of the road. And so again, if we were to extend that trail beyond Forley, we have some issues with the grade, with the terrain from the terrain of the land. But then we also run into an issue here where we'd have to acquire property along this entire stretch. And so some of those situations go quite well with property owners, and some are not. And so it'd be a situation where, one, we'd have to have cooperative landowners, or the council would have to feel comfortable going through the eminent domain process. And so that's certainly something that takes a little bit of time, something that could certainly be accomplished, but I just want to highlight these things so that we can have a discussion related to which direction we'd like to go. We also, as we continue east, as this screen is trying to catch up with me, again, the north side is certainly much easier to accommodate. We get further to the east, and we start to have some issues both on the south, I guess more predominantly on the south side, with some of the grades along the roadway that would again require additional retaining walls. We have some on the north where there's some trees. It happens to fall within the right-of-way, so we certainly could remove the trees. We could also pull in the trail adjacent to the curb and not have a boulevard in certain areas to try to provide and protect some trees that property owners likely would like to see remain. And we would work through all these things through the public engagement process. But as we get down past Glen Oak, it becomes more of a rural section where really extending the trail and the sidewalk becomes really costly, both on the north side and the south side. It's a significant drop off right from the edge of the roadway down many feet. And so if we were to construct that trail in this area, we could have that trail maybe a little bit lower in the lower bottom of the right of way that we have. It would involve more tree removals, but on the south side, again, it would be something that would involve a fair amount of retaining wall. And I don't know that there's a benefit to have the sidewalk go beyond Glen Oak as well. And so I just wanted to kind of lay that out a little bit, what we have for right-of-way. We have some areas where we need it if we extend the sidewalk. On the north side, I feel pretty confident with the elimination of the north parking lane that we would have enough right-of-way to work and not really need a lot beyond temporary easements. So I have just a couple of options here, just to give a graphical representation. Again, this is Glen Oak to Polaris. And really, we plan on maintaining the existing road surface, not really widening anything out, just reclaiming the existing road surface and paving that road surface. So really not a lot to consider there. But as we look at, well, I'm missing one of them here, it looks like. But as we look at the other option, the first option being maintaining those parking lanes, maintaining the drive lanes, we have the ability to really construct this 8-foot sidewalk, 8-foot trail on the side, This is looking, as you're looking in towards town from Polaris, so you're looking west. So the trail would be on the north side. We would maintain a boulevard. That width could vary depending on what we have for right-of-way. The south side, again, to have that sidewalk here is quite costly. We could certainly maintain and replace the sidewalk that exists there today. We get into some issues where we need significantly more right-of-way, as well as some terrain issues where we need a lot of retaining walls. And so with that, maybe I can get into more detail. I don't have detailed costs. I know that it's significantly less expensive to go forward with the option where we don't need to acquire right-of-way. We don't need to install significant retaining walls throughout. But I want to just get some initial feedback from you, and then we can dive into a little bit more depth if there's questions that you have. But just want to get some general feedback from the council about what your thoughts are for that corridor.
Mr. Erickson, can you go back to the road?
Yep.
Please.
Oh, what did I do with it?
So as you go towards the city again, there's some property there that has nothing on it, whatever. And maybe Rob, you'll know, what are some of that, what are we looking at for some of those pieces of property? So there's a main one right where your cursor is. What are those zoned?
They're mainly they're wet and not buildable.
Okay.
That particular parcel there, it's mostly all wet. I don't know, Mr. Erickson, if you could put that layer on, but I don't even believe there's anything potentially buildable on that.
And the reason why I'm asking is just, are there any businesses that can be mixed up in there? Is this always just gonna be housing? Wow.
Right. I think that's there's obviously through the zoning, through that area, there's multifamily possibilities. It would be really up to, I think, probably a pertinent time now as we work through our comprehensive plan through the planning commission. If that was something the planning commission or the council, once you review that draft of that comprehensive plan, if you felt that was something you wanted to look into as far as allowing more of a commercial component on that area, that's certainly something you could evaluate.
Okay.
Or we could evaluate.
Okay, and then the trails that we're talking about would be similar to what's on 22?
Correct.
That paved trail there? Okay. And I know I was at that meeting and residents were very strongly against taking away parking. That was loud and clear, right? Against taking away any parking. So I think the north side sounds like that's the best option. I know when I've attended a couple of the arts music sessions this last summer, they were parking on both sides of the street. So my other question would be this. I'm just going to throw a wrench to all of it and you can say no, that won't work, or oh my gosh. I was in Lake Elmo, probably in June, and there was a beautiful, what do you call it? I'm gonna call it a boulevard down the center road, right? So you could drive one way each way. It was beautiful. It looked like Mayberry, basically.
Yeah.
So, is that something we can do? Is there enough room to do that? Or are we taking away parking or trail and that kind of thing? So,
Right, so I'm gonna go back to another figure here, and certainly there is enough right-of-way on sections to do that, particularly on the west end, there's an enormous right-of-way there, and so there is, but it would be, but the right-of-way also goes right up to people's front doorsteps, right? And so
Okay.
there's some challenges to that. When we look at this road section that we've identified here, two 12-foot roads, driving lanes, an 8-foot shoulder on one side, we essentially are maintaining the back of the side, I'm sorry, I'm looking the wrong way again. The back of the existing sidewalk would be pretty close to where the edge of the existing trail would be.
okay.
So if we start to look at adding in a center median area here,
Yeah.
we end up pushing that out further, and it would likely involve either additional right-of-way acquisition in some cases, depending on the scope and the length of where you would do that. But it also would involve, even though it would potentially be in the city right-of-way, some significant tree removals as well.
Okay. And with this plan, how will it slow down the traffic? We have no guarantees on it, obviously, but that is a problem on that road typically. So do we think this will address that?
So oftentimes when you do have narrower roadways, provides a little bit more of a traffic calming sense as well. We can look at narrower lanes as well to try to minimize those impacts, and that oftentimes does help. One other question that had come up during that neighborhood meeting, you might recall, was regarding the driver feedback signs. And
Yeah.
so we could certainly look to employ a few more of those, maybe one or two more, particularly in the more downtown area. I think even for people heading out to Polaris, I think those people might need a reminder as well at times, and so we can certainly look at that as well.
Okay, and are there any spots where there needs to be a crosswalk?
Yeah, I think that's something that we will look at quite closely. I think, we have an eye on something even for Wyoming Trail, and I think that's an important area that we want to look at. I know Candace is currently working on Candace with WSB,
Yeah.
working on some overall community plans related to pedestrian movement throughout the community. We'd like to make sure that as we develop this plan, we have a little bit of time before we get into construction and final design here, of course, that we would employ what's found in that report into this plan as well. And so we do think that there would be the need for that, particularly if we have amenities only on the one side.
Yep, and then we can include flashing lights or whatever
Yes.
into that, so people
Yep.
see. Awesome, all right, well, that's all my questions. Member Yeager.
All right, so throughout this memo, you talk about the slope of the driveways in each alternative.
Yeah.
How big are those slopes going to be?
Well, on the south side, and I highlighted a couple that really stood out to me. I'll just close this down again. We just got the topographic survey in here just a day or two ago. But particularly in the area here just east of Forley, I don't know, I know that the grades are probably about 8% now. I'm guessing 8 or 10%, but they would likely exceed our city standard, and certainly when you have an existing driveway with an already steep grade and you make it greater, oftentimes property owners are not receptive to that, and I think we would likely see that, whether it be, trailers hitting icy conditions in the winter, and those are challenging slopes already in some cases, particularly this driveway here. When you extend and have a flat boulevard and you have a ADA compliant sidewalk with only a 2% cross slope, it makes this remaining portion much steeper than what exists there today.
I was more concerned with wood-border pool at the end of those driveways.
Oh, no. Well, the longitudinal slope on the roadway will have a concrete curb and gutter that will have a longitudinal slope with the roadway. And so that will make sure that there will not be any pooling of water at the end of any driveways.
Okay. I also noticed that each alternative had differing sizes of boulevards. The alternative to hybrid being the largest. do people really want big boulevards to have to care for? I mean, as I walk, some grass in the boulevards are very nice. Others look like not too good.
Yep.
And, I mean, I had one lady once call me up about, she put in nice grass, and then when people, I guess, came and possibly the city or the county came, plowed and whatnot, there went her nice grass. So would people prefer smaller boulevards or the bigger, or the 10-foot boulevard?
Yeah, and I think, you know, certainly in this corridor, in areas, we have room for a wider boulevard, and there's advantages to that. One, it tends to grow grass better, and you don't have that heat effect, right, with a hot trail and a hot road right on either side of it, and that causes some issues. There's salt from the road that oftentimes when you're plowing, it ends up right there in the boulevard between the sidewalk and the roadway, and so it's not a great area to grow vegetation always, and so that's why you see some areas are a little bit spotty and some aren't as good. It does allow more room for snow storage when you plow. I think in this area, as we look at the corridor and we look at the trees, and again, I got the topographic survey in after, but in looking at it, I would think that we're probably gonna go with a standard 5-foot boulevard and not something really wide. If you do have a wider boulevard, you can have plantings in them and things of that nature, but in this case, I would think that we're probably gonna end up with a 5-foot boulevard or something of that nature. We don't like to go much less than that, or we do end up having, you know, the issues that we see with the vegetation there.
Okay, because,
You can see here, and I'll just give an example, the right-of-way here is, I'll just the boulevard area that we have to work with in here is roughly all the way to the curb is 20, what is that? 29 feet, so it's significant there. But we don't want to remove every single tree in this corridor to put the trail away as far away as we can. I think we want to try to maintain the integrity of these small front yards that are there already, and try to keep that back of that trail as close to the back of that sidewalk that exists there today as possible.
so would there be street, boulevard, trail?
Correct. Because we don't want to necessarily have that trail right up to the back of the curb. That's where when you snowplow, all the snow ends up right on the trail, and it becomes unusable if you want to use it in the winter, if we decide to maintain trails and such in the future.
Yeah. Now, I see alternative 1 has the smallest boulevard of your 3 alternatives, but it also comes with more cost and more retaining walls.
Right, and the boulevard, again, that's maintaining the 8-foot parking lanes on both sides of the roadway. And so that does, it would make this much smaller, virtually nothing if we maintain the existing width and tried to put in the sidewalk and tried to maintain that similar back edge of the existing sidewalk.
I think my question was more, of your 3 options, option 1 has the smallest boulevard.
Yep.
Option 2 hybrid has a 10-foot boulevard. Alternative 2 had a 7.5-foot boulevard.
Correct, yep.
So in the question of boulevards, it sounds like we want the smaller the better.
It certainly would be the least impactful and the least cost as well.
Okay, but the alternative with the smallest boulevard seems to have the most disadvantages to it.
Well, I think there's really a third hybrid that I'd like to just highlight, that I think really looks at eliminating the 8-foot parking lane on the north side. That really is, it really allows that trail to be put in without the impacts. And I think there's, you know, the third alternative really could look at eliminating the sidewalk on that very difficult, challenging areas where it would impact people's driveways, involve significant retaining walls, And so I think I'd like to make sure that that's a consideration that, I'd like to know, how important is it to have a trail on one side and the entire length have a sidewalk on the other? I think that has a pretty significant impact on property acquisition and overall project costs and impacts.
See, that was my next question. If we have an 8-foot trail on one side and a 6-foot sidewalk on the other side, do the residents on each side of the street have to maintain the sidewalk or the trail the same way?
So trails are not maintained by the
That's what I
property owners,
thought.
right? So that's a benefit for having a trail, I guess, but that's something that would be maintained by the Public Works Department. And we could certainly look at, I know our standard city detail is a 6-foot sidewalk. We could certainly look at a 5-foot sidewalk as well, but the 3-foot sidewalk would not be ADA compliant.
Okay. And then if we have parking on one side, if we have a parking lane on one side, well, there are a couple of questions that come up. One is, how are you gonna stop them from parking on the other side? Are we gonna be always the police presence in there shooing people away?
It would be signed, and it would actually be right in the drive lane. So I mean, it'll be a 12-foot drive lane right up to the edge of the curb, and so there would not be area there to park.
Okay,
Yeah, there'd be a white shoulder stripe there as well. Yep.
okay. And if we have parking on one side and trail on one side, you mentioned, I was thinking, how do we keep people from not getting hit? We've already mentioned crosswalks and signs and flashing signs, little smiley faces on them. You know what I think about smiley faces.
What was the question?
How are we going to keep everybody safe? We've already talked about, is the idea of crosswalk signs.
There would be crosswalks, there would be signage, there would be the driver feedback signs with speeds. There would be, I would recommend having this boulevard, a 5-foot boulevard to keep pedestrians away, not right up next to the edge of the existing roadway.
Okay. Ideally, I'd like to see a sidewalk go up to Glen Oak, because people walk down Glen Oak, then you open up going down Viking, being able to walk into town safer. You have the people at Kennedy Estates looking for a place to walk.
So when you said that, you said a sidewalk. So did you mean a sidewalk on the south side and a trail on the north side, both sides all the way down?
No, well, I don't care if it's both sides or one side.
Okay.
I can live with one side.
Sure.
But I just want to make sure when people are there's a way to cross over from the other side without, getting picked off by a car.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if, kept it, they don't have to worry about it, or they don't have to dart out between cars trying to cross over and then get picked off by a car.
It is much easier to accommodate a trail on the north side than it is a sidewalk on the south side. And so I think if we're comfortable with, and I don't want to speak for the council, but if the council is comfortable with one or the other, similar to what we have on Wyoming Trail, we could certainly accommodate that. There is sidewalk that exists west of 40 that could certainly be replaced as well and maintain that existing section. I think they stopped for a reason, because it was challenging with the grades that were there.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know the history, but I'm sure that's why, based on the terrain that's there.
Is there a natural crosswalk from that?
Well, I think we certainly would look to potentially have those located, one in town for sure.
Yep.
I think at Glen Oak would be another.
Yep.
And then we do have some sidewalk facilities here at Frontier as well. So I think we could certainly look at a few different locations just to accommodate pedestrians at different parts of the community.
Okay.
Particularly since we only have amenities on one side, we want to get them across safely.
Yep.
And then previously mentioned, we talked about the 2 areas of wetlands closer to town where it's fairly vacant. Are those, how wet are they? Are those buildable?
They're not buildable.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I had.
All right, Member Onstead.
Just looking at this and,
He's looking at the GIS.
oh, yeah, I'm looking at the map and thinking, you know, I don't wanna affect too many property owners, especially with the steep driveways. That'd be a difficult decision, and I don't think it'd be fair to those property owners. So I would steer away from anything that's gonna affect, you know, retaining walls are fine, but the steep driveways,
Right.
I wouldn't be okay with that. You know, if I recall, a couple of those have a pretty steep pitch to start with.
Yep.
And, you know, I'd wonder if that'd take it out of ADA compliancy right there, you know, even though I don't think that's applicable. But, for me too, I'm looking at the property after Glen Oak. And I was wondering, are we planning on extending this all the way up to Polaris or stopping at Glen Oak? And if I had a choice, I'd say I would stop at Glen Oak, because that would tie in a nice circuit of area where after Glen Oak, it's kind of a dead end. Not to take away anything from the people that do live there, but I don't see it as being as advantageous to keep the trail going past that point.
And I agree, I think our intention and our thought would be to extend to the Glen Oak area. One area in particular, I think it might be worthwhile just to investigate a little bit, is further extending that trail to this corner. You can see the extension of this roadway here, there's a natural, where people actually access out this direction, pedestrians. And so it might be worthwhile to investigate to see how can we get this trail up into this area here to service this neighborhood here as well.
Actually,
Okay.
that's a great idea because of the fact that there are a lot of heavy equipment that come around that corner. There's good sight lines, but it still would be dangerous. So to put a good sidewalk or trail on that side, I think is very smart, to keep people from walking on the road that do want to continue going that way, because there are people that live up there.
Is that like Goldman Estates?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some areas where there's really tight right of way in this area here that we still will have to work with some property owners for easements, and we've done that on many projects already here in the community, and we can certainly do that, but it certainly helps to mitigate how many we deal with. Just appraisals themselves are quite expensive, and we want to minimize costs, and I don't want to go down that road and get them for all options, and so that's why I really want to just hone in on costs here and what option we want to move forward with.
Yeah, and I just see with the heavy equipment that is going up and down that road from both the SRC
Yep.
and Polaris, that, you know, having a smaller road, lower speed limit, will also have the least amount of impact on individual property owners. I think the option 2 kind of fits that criteria.
Okay.
Is there any other buildable land there just before the townhomes? As that curve that we were talking about,
This area here,
over just a little bit more, yeah,
over here, yeah,
it's all buildable and stuff.
yeah.
Still, okay, all right, Member Luger, your turn.
Well, I like the idea, and it probably doesn't fit into this project, but I like the idea of increasing the walkability all the way out to Polaris. And the reason is because I've spoken with a number of residents who, feel that it's way too fast from that corner, not just from like, not just from the corner, but all the way through Polaris for a variety of reasons. Carlos Avery is a really pretty area. And, you know, I mean, I walk that and I bike it myself. It's not very pleasant to walk as it is right now. But I think in the future, if we could look at increasing the walkability there, I know that there are a handful of residents who would appreciate that. And I think it would allow us to enjoy kind of the natural amenities that we have in our city limits. Again, that might not be in the cards for this one. That sounds expensive right now.
Yeah.
But I think if we can do something that at a minimum increases the safety of that corner, where it heads off past the townhomes, that would be great. I have zero interest in going down a path of eminent domain for property owners, and I think that, and to Member Onstead's point, I don't know what that would do in that specific instant for that property owner in terms of ADA compliance, but I do think as we go forward with these projects, we know that we have a value for ADA compliance. And so I think that is a value and a priority for me as part of this project. So I guess I'm looking more along the north side. Although if we could maintain the sidewalk up to Forley, that would be awesome. There's a lot of people who use that, who live in the apartments and the senior facility and even the apartments that are just past Kennedy Estates, who the walkability for those folks are important too. So those are my opinions.
Great, thank you.
Great. We haven't heard from Chief Hoppy yet. Chief Hoppy, what would you, in your experience, knowing that there's a lot of fast driving, there are a lot of kids because those apartments and the townhomes have a lot of children in them, what would be your advice coming from the police department side?
Certainly you guys know my position on it, because we've talked about on almost every road that we create that we want a segregation between automobile and pedestrian traffic, and I think a trail or a sidewalk would obtain that or serve that service. The Golden Estates and that corner specifically, we see a lot of pedestrian traffic on that corner, and the way it's constructed right now is just simply scary, to be frank. So I think if you are going to do a trail, I would not hold it short at Glen Oak. I would certainly extend it out to at least the emergency exit, which is just on the edge of the screen for that neighborhood, because that is has a high volume of kids in that neighborhood and probably always will, based on the of what it's constructed of or designed to do. But I would do at the minimum that emergency exit right there where you see the vehicles parked there. But on a long-term vision, if we just keep going east, Mark, and zoom out a little bit.
Sorry.
I think if you're going to serve the longer-term vision, I would at least consider pulling it up to the main entrance of Golden Estates, because if you see the property across the street from it, there's potential for development there, and once that does come in, you're going to want to extend that walkability to that neighborhood, and I think you're better off addressing that issue now than trying to solve it later down the road. But at a minimum, I would hit that curve, because we do see from the police department a lot of traffic on that curve, and they dive for the ditch, to put it frank, because it is a blind approach, and I don't think motorists are being intentful, just simply narrow road, blind approach, and surprised by people on the corner. So I think it'd be really important to extend that trail as far as you could around that corner if possible to the main entrance, if not at a minimum to the emergency exit for that neighborhood.
Can I ask why there's cars in the middle in the emergency driveway? Just out of curiosity. So I'm kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it, with the trailer right there? So, anyways, okay. So I am for what Chief Hoppy said, rounding it, because I do see that spot that for development over there, how soon that'll come, who knows? Cheaper to do it now than later. I would like to see, if possible, the sidewalks that are on the south that we already have there, but adding the trail on the other side as long as we have crosswalks and flashing lights, because we come blind to those signs, right? So that would be great. This grant that we're looking at, is it a 50-50? I can't remember. 50-50?
50-50.
Okay. So the residents aren't paying for the trail. The city in general would be paying for that trail, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
That would not be accessible.
That would not be accessible, okay. And so right now, what you're asking from council is how far for the trail? It sounds like we're all for the trail, correct? Am I understanding that, Linda? Yes?
It works.
Okay.
I like that idea.
And can we all agree that the trail going all the way around that curve to Goldman Townhomes? Are we in agreement to at least find out to do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, okay, good.
We will include that in the engineer report. As you can see, the property line does extend past the roadway, so they would need to consent if we're, to allow us to build that. We'd have to get a trail easement to do that, but I think they likely would potentially be in favor, and we'll work with that through the public engagement process. But for the engineering report, that will be included.
And who owns that? Is that, that's whoever owns it isn't the townhome owner, is it, that owns that?
Association.
Privately owned, okay. All right, and then we still, I think we're all in agreement, I believe that we still want the sidewalk on the other side that's already existing, not extending it out, correct? Okay, sounds that way by looks and shakes of heads.
You're saying not extending out past Glen Oak?
Not past
Foley.
Forley.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because that's already there, right?
Okay.
I do worry, there is a gentleman, correct me if I'm wrong, that sits in a chair out on the road in front of his house. Have you seen that, Chief Hoppy?
East Viking.
Yeah.
I've seen him there in the past. I don't know necessarily if he's still there monitoring.
Okay, very scared to see that, so. Okay, do you have what you need?
I do. I just wanted to get some level of consensus and
Yeah.
that I'm comfortable moving forward with the direction I've received this evening to prepare the engineering report and finalize the feasibility study.
Okay, and really the hope is that we get in our city where we're able to plow or have Public Works take care of that. That's our ultimate goal, whether it's 5 years from now or 10, whatever the case may be, but that'll be a nice amenity, so.
So we're gonna still have one side parking, and then how big are our boulevards going to be?
We'll look to see exactly what fits well with all the existing topographic. We want to avoid trees, right? Significant
Yeah.
150-year-old trees. If we can avoid those, it may vary at some points, but we'd want to shoot for a minimum of 5 feet.
Okay. So what we're suggesting does not neatly fit into any one of the alternatives, we kind of put it all together.
Yeah, it's hard to find a one size fits all.
Right.
We could have had probably 20 different alternatives, but I think we're going to shoehorn what fits the best, and I think that provides the most flexibility as we move forward. We'll get into the details a little bit more, and we'll certainly have many more meetings on this, but wanted to kind of hone in our focus and get a little direction before we went much further.
Perfect, thank you. I know
Thank
we
you.
always need to be aware that someday, we may not be here, but someday, we hope to have some type of manufacturing or something out that way, right? That's would be great, so. Okay, the rest is really quick and easy. Number 14, to consider a proclamation declaring October 1st through October 31st, 2021 as Manufacturer Month in the city of Wyoming. Ms. Dumas, I'm assuming you're doing this one.
Actually, Administrator Linwood's doing it.
Oh, sorry. Sorry
She
about
could
that.
have. Mayor, members of council, this is a annual exercise we do just for a proclamation for our manufacturing month. As you know, manufacturing is very large in Wyoming, and it's a substantial portion of Minnesota's economy, and really offers some great paying jobs. And we're lucky here that we have so many manufacturers within our city. So we like to just take note and pay tribute to them and have a proclamation. Like I said, this year the state has changed it from Manufacturers Week to Manufacturers Month. So we would be identifying this as Manufacturers Month in Wyoming.
Okay, last year we sent out postcards. Is that something we'll do again this year?
We'll be looking to bring that to the EDA at their next meeting.
Perfect. All right. Questions from Council Member Onstead,
No questions.
Member Yeager,
No questions.
Member Luger.
No questions.
All right. We don't need to move anything on that, correct? We're just, it
not
was
for
a
proclamation.
communication piece?
Just communication.
Okay. Number 15, to consider Resolution 2110-102, a resolution combining outstanding assessments 21019-16 from the 2015 Street Improvement Project for Parcel 21.00226.00 and 21.00228.00 to the newly created parcel of 21.00228.00. Mr. Linwood?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
I'm having some struggle here trying to bring this up on the screen, but I'll try to get it up for you before I'm done talking, as I think the visual is somewhat helpful on this particular item. If you just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about the wait. Mayor, members of council, this is a situation that was brought to our attention today, actually, hence why it was added to your agenda late. This year, as you know, the former Fairview building that had been unoccupied for quite some time was purchased by Winseth, Smith and Knowlton. They've been doing some significant work over there, complete renovation of the building, an addition of a garage, and then doing some sidewalk improvements, parking lot improvements, et cetera. So it's been busy for them. As part of when they started to do some of their survey and work on this, it was noted that for what reason I can't completely say as we look back at some of the history, just how this developed throughout kind of the older portion of our city. You can see previously that for some reason it was allowed upon that this entity had two parcels. You can kind of see that the 226 is kind of making up that parking lot area, and then you see that the building and kind of the front boulevard here near Highway 61, and really that it isn't, it's unique, and really as Winseth saw it was just an opportunity to clean it up. So they did actually apply for a combination of those parcels through the county auditor, which our zoning administrator signed off on back in January. It's an administrative duty that's allowed by our zoning code. The one piece of this was that there were still two existing assessments on those two properties from our 2015 street project. That being said, with the combination of the two, it would be necessary that we just get a resolution and authorization from the council that we take those two assessments that are still outstanding that will be complete in 2025 and combine them to that newly created parcel, which is still 21.00.22800. So tonight the council is in front of you. There's a resolution authorizing the combination of those assessments being put on that parcel moving forward for the remaining duration on that. It goes until 2025 unless Winseth finds it in their best interest to pay it off sooner. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
All right, Member Luker.
No questions.
Member Yeager?
What took so long to figure this out?
It wasn't noted, essentially, usually when there's a transfer of any kind of property, usually there's an assessment search from the title company, and that simply, we did not receive one on this transaction. So that's usually when we get those. That usually would be a time when the assessments would be reviewed or outstanding utility bills would be reviewed. So in this instance, it didn't, and now as the auditor noticed that there was a combined parcel application that had been completed, they're getting ready to put their T&T notices along with their assessment rolls for the end of the year, and they noted there's still, two outstanding assessments. There's currently one parcel. Would you like to combine them for the one? Which certainly, yes, I believe in the best interest of the city, and I'm hoping the council would like to combine them too.
You said there's an outstanding assessment. Wouldn't the previous owner have paid off the assessment upon sale of the property?
Usually that would be the normal, but like I said, hence we did not receive anything from the title company through that sale. So really it would be the ability of whoever title company it was, probably Fairview. Winseth could go back if they were not aware of the assessments. We'll find out if they were or not, and they may have the previous owner pay those off. But that's really
But the assessments have been paid to this point?
Up to the point they have been paid. I think the original balance on both was around $2,700. Currently, there's a balance of, I think, $967 left on both, so it's fairly small at this point as it's nearing completion.
It's being paid off?
Correct.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yep.
All right, Member Onstead?
No questions.
All right. So we need a motion to approve Resolution 21-1002, a resolution combining outstanding assessments 21019-16 from the 2015 Street Improvement Project. I'm not going to read the rest of it. All right, so do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Member Onstead makes the first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Luker makes that second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So approved. All right, we're done with that agenda. Are there any, are we good?
Mayor, I actually do have one additional item tonight that just, with the timeliness of it, it's necessary that we do it now. I'm going to ask that we get a motion to add this item to the agenda.
Okay.
Begrudgingly.
It's not about you, is it?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll just take a second to read through this.
Thank you.
so I'll make a motion to add to the agenda for tonight the resignation of, unfortunately, Kelly Dumas, Assistant City Administrator. We need a second to have that added to the agenda.
Second.
We have a second by Member Luker. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So it is on the agenda. Mr. Linwood, would you like to?
I would, and I think I apologize for the time when Ms. Dumas was waiting for final okay on this item, as she, I think, indicated, has accepted a position at the City of Mendota Heights. I'm extremely excited for Kelly. She's very talented. I know she'll do great there. We're disappointed that she'll be leaving us. I know I will be, but wish her the best, and I know she'll continue to really go places in her career. So congratulations on that. We're disappointed you're leaving.
I will add to that. You have done such great work here at the city. You were very talented, so I could see where it's time for you to go to a bigger city, right, with that talent. So, but you've done great things here, and just very excited for what the future holds for you, not only for your up-and-coming marriage, but then also for this new job and bigger and bigger cities. So, but very sad for our community. Let's see, Member Yeager, any questions, comments? Okay, Member Onstad?
Good luck, and thanks for all the work that you've done and did for the city.
All right, and Member Luker?
I am not excited for this. I would like you to stay here and develop your skills here with us. No, I'm just kidding. No, congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done with us.
All right, so unfortunately with this, we do need a motion to approve her resignation to start with, and then do we need?
We'll add the other item too.
Add them to that, okay. All right, so first we need a motion to approve the resignation of Ms. Dumas.
I'll make the motion.
So with that, we need a second.
You didn't have to.
Well, it could fail if we don't get a
Okay,
second.
okay.
So, and I'm not
I will
doing
reluctantly
it.
second.
All right, so we do have a second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so approved. And then the, let's see. So the resolution, or what we have in front of us.
We would just add another agenda item to authorize the administrative department to hire for the
Okay, so I'll make
replacement.
the motion to add the filling of the position authorizing the administrative department to proceed with advertisement and selection process for the assistant city administrator position. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member Luker. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, Mr. Linwood.
Mayor, members of council, this is essentially just asking for authorization to move forward with the advertisement and selection process for the eligibility to replace the position of the assistant city administrator.
I thought we just did that.
I think we just accepted the resignation. This was
Just the
other-
resignation.
Yeah, we didn't, it could have been done in one action, but this
Okay.
is fine too.
I'd rather have it separate. So, okay, go ahead.
That's
Do you have
all I-
anything else?
No, that's
You're
all I really
good?
have. I
Okay,
just
we're all
need-
good.
yep.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion to approve this. Who wants to make that first motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve by Member Onstad, second by Mayor Iverson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So approved. All right, we now need to do council reports. You threw me for a loop, so let's get council reports. So let's start with Member Luker.
I attended the Park Advisory Commission meeting last night, as well as the special work session tonight.
All right, thank you. Member Onstad.
I attended the Planning Commission last week, where we had several members of the community who were affected by one of the items on the agenda, were able to come and speak. I was given the opportunity to go to the fire department's training, and
Did you go in? Did you run in?
I went in and a couple feet from the flame,
Wow.
and it was pretty warm.
Yeah.
And boy, what a great group of guys. It was good to meet them and see what they go through. I kind of had an idea, but just to get in there and see those flames going towards the ceiling at our burn house, I guess it's called, up in Stacy. What an experience. 1,200 degrees and rising. You know, it was a very hot night. That was fun. We really, I love supporting our safety in our city. And then I attended the work session just prior to this meeting.
All right, thank you. There's no better way to govern than to understand what everybody else does that makes the city run, right?
Yep.
It totally changes your outlook on how we govern, so. Awesome, good for you.
And how we keep our fire department members safe, trained, and helping the community.
I think Claire and I were geared up for that, and did you go in? I know for me it was thunder and lightning, so, but I can't remember if you went in?
I went in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Weather gods were good on
It
my
was,
end.
it was toasty.
So, it was, yeah.
It's toasty.
All right, and Member Yeager.
I attended the work session previous to this meeting, and thank you all for coming, and thank you all for watching.
All right, and mine is super short. I attended the work session as well. I'm also part of the Chisago County Growth Committee, working with Chisago County, all the cities in Chisago County on how to bring businesses, manufacturing, and also more housing into the county. So we're all working together and on how we're doing that. And I would say it's absolutely a phenomenal group and experience to go through that. So had a couple meetings with them. I think I'm missing something, but that's okay. So, and I, again, appreciate everybody that's here. So with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Onstad. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member
Uh,
Luger. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No? Anybody? No? Yeah, we're all good.